I am inviting you to try Neville Goddard's simplest and quickest technique to get exactly what you want in life. Now, Neville Goddard is one of the greatest metaphysical and spiritual teachers on manifestation. Wayne Dyer, who became one of the most famous teachers, credits Neville as actually his greatest teacher. And the problem is that Neville's work is quite old, so there's not a lot of good recordings. But I spent hours going through his old lectures, and I even paid for old audio to be enhanced just for you. So in this video, I'm gonna break down Neville's 5-step magical formula to get exactly what you want. Now, according to Neville, it all starts with imagination. So here's Neville explaining the mysterious power of imagination.
All things exist in the human imagination. And everything you see as an objective reality was produced by imagining.
Now I love that because it reminds me of an old quote from the famous poet William Blake that Wayne Dyer used to write about. And Blake said, quote, "What is now proved was once only imagined." Now think about it. Every single thing in the objective world was once imagined, for better or worse. If you're struggling financially, it's because you've subconsciously imagined that you're broke and incapable of it. In the same way, it's just imagination that created everything. Imagination created YouTube, imagination created computers, imagination has created every minute detail of your personal life and every large, objectively fascinating, helpful, and amazing thing in our world today. And that summarizes big idea number 1. All material reality begins in imagination. But then, of course, the logical question is, how do you actually harness the power of imagination to get what you really want in life? And Neville has a very profound technique that you can start to apply into your life to take advantage of this. So let's have him explain how to use your imagination here.
You simply know what you want. When you know what you want, you're thinking of it. That is not enough. You must now begin to think from it. Well, how could I think from it? I am sitting here, and I desire to be elsewhere. How could I, while sitting here physically, put myself in imagination at a point in space removed from this room and make that real to me? Quite easily. My imagination puts me in touch inwardly with that state. I imagine that I am actually where I desire to be. Now, can I tell that I am there? There is only one way to prove that I am there. For what a man sees when he describes his world is as he describes it relative to himself. So what the world looks like depends entirely upon where I stand when I make my observation. So if, as I describe my world, it is related to that point in space I imagine that I am occupying, then I must be there. I am not there physically, no, but I am there in my imagination, and my imagination is my real self.
Now, this technique was life-changing for me because I was studying all of this manifestation stuff and I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't getting what I wanted. And I realized I was thinking of what I wanted. I was thinking of having a viral YouTube channel. I was thinking of having my books published by major publishers. I was thinking of attracting my soulmate. So what I was actually telling my subconscious is it doesn't exist, but I wish it did exist. That's the difference between thinking of something and thinking from something. Because your brain and your subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. And if you're thinking of something, then what you're doing is breaking time up into a linear fashion, pushing your desires into the future, which tells your subconscious you do not have it. But the way that you use this Neville technique is you use your imagination to train your brain and subconscious that you already possess it. You live from it. You feel the feelings. I felt my viral YouTube videos before they happened. You feel the excitement of shaking hands with the clients that you don't have yet. You feel the joy of walking on the beach with your soulmate even though you don't have them yet. You're living from what you want, and that is what opens up the real magic. And that, my friend, summarizes big idea number 2. Stop thinking of what you want or about what you want. Start thinking from your desire. Feel the emotions, feel the feelings. It's already real in your mind. Now, according to Neville, in order to do this, you just need one simple thing, and that's living in the end, right? Because you might go, all right, I understand that intellectually, but how do I actually do that? And Neville describes it as a very simple mental technique, living in the end. So let's have Neville break it down here.
You always go to the end, and the end is where you begin. You are always imagining ahead of our evidence, so go to the end. Until the end. And then, dwell in that end, even though reason denies it and your senses deny it. You turn your back upon the doubters. That is your senses and what reason dictates. That's the hell or the devil or Satan in the world. That's the doubter. So you turn your back upon it. And then you walk as though things were as you want them to be. And living in that assumption, it slowly hardens into fact. Even though at the moment of the assumption it was denied by reason, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. So you learn to assume and learn to persist in the assumption, and it will come to pass.
Now, when I first came across that, it mentally sounded good, right? But I noticed I had all these habitual thought patterns that kept me stuck in my current reality, right? I'd think about how I want all these desires and how I was gonna get them, and I'd get excited, but then my old thought patterns would come back into the way. And I learned that that's because 95% of your life is subconscious. Psychologists tell us that we have 65,000 thoughts in a day. There was a Stanford study on the subconscious that estimated 65,000 thoughts in a day. Well, 95% of them are subconscious. They're habitually programmed. So we don't realize that the vast majority of our thoughts, feelings, and actions are pre-programmed. So you consciously want something over here, but you're subconsciously programmed to operate from what your 5 senses tell you. And that's why it's so important to start to retrain the subconscious. The way I did that, and I suggest you do that, is to start to brainwash yourself, right? We're all being brainwashed no matter what, but instead you have to hypnotize yourself for what you want as opposed to the same old story. And I have a free success hypnosis. It's right there down below, jakeshypnosis.com. It's pinned to the comments and in the description. And it's very important that you use this with the next Neville Goddard technique that we're gonna break down now. And that leads us into big idea number 4, is to specifically mentally rehearse imaginal acts. Imaginal acts. So let's have Neville break down how you can do this right now.
If I wanted something in this world, and who doesn't, I would formulate an act which would imply that I have it. And then in my imagination, I would simply, having performed that act, I would yield completely to this being within me to execute it. I would fall into sleep, convinced that he heard me, that he saw my act in faith. I simply yield completely to him, having acted. It's an act of self-commission. I perform the act, not act. I act as though I had what I sought.
I love that one, but it begs the question is how? And so what I like to do is ask myself, if my desire were to come true, what would happen? What would occur? And I was 21 years old and I had self-published my first book. No one would publish it. So I was like, okay, if I was a big successful author, what would happen? Well, my books would be in Barnes & Noble and stuff like that. And so when I self-published my first book, I started going to all the Barnes & Nobles in San Diego, and I'd walk in there and I'd bring a couple books in, and I would go over alphabetically next to Wayne Dyer's, because my last name's Ducey and Dyer, so I'm right next to him. So I'd go in there, I'd put my books next to Wayne Dyer's, and I'd sit in those little leather armchairs where you can sit in the aisles of the bookstores, and I would imagine my book literally being there. Of course, it was easy because I was actually putting it there. And I would do this over and over and over again, every single day. Go in, put 3 books there, go in, put 2 books there. And then I would just leave, and I would leave the books in the stores. Now, the crazy thing is, and I'll flash a screenshot up right here that you can see right now, this is literally my books in Barnes & Noble in Honolulu that a reader sent to me next to Wayne Dyer's. Now, you might not be able to put your books in Barnes & Noble because maybe you don't want to be an author. And so what I advise you to do is go on Google Images and think about what it is that you want. So you might want a certain house, you might want new windows on your house, you might want a house in the mountains, you might want a certain car, you might want to sell your home, you might want your soulmate, you might want to get in better health, you might want more adventure. Whatever it is that you specifically want, type it in on Google Images, print it out, and then put those printed out pieces of paper on your wall. And when you go in to use this mentally rehearsal imaginal acts technique, stare at the photos with your eyes open, just look at the photos. And while you do that, I encourage you to play my success hypnosis low. It's right there down below. It's jakeshypnosis.com. It's free. Just let it play so it starts to get rid of those old negative and habitual thoughts. Look at the image of what you want. Once you see it clearly, close your eyes and practice seeing it and feeling it with your eyes closed. Hear the voices, smell the sounds as if it were to occur. And when you feel the feeling evoked, stop, open your eyes, and then you move to the next image. And you move through all 3 to 5, whatever it is, images of what you want that you printed out. Once you feel the feeling, you know you've done it successfully. And this leads us into the mother of all techniques from Neville. And that is to practice as you're falling to sleep. So here's a clip of Neville explaining the power of sleep.
Everything was once only imagined. Now tonight, find out exactly what you, not what they think you ought to want, what you want. Ask no one's permission. You don't need any man's permission. You don't need your own decision. What do I want? Now, what would it be like if it were true? What would I feel like were it true? Now catch the mood and try to give that mood all the sensory vividness of reality, all the tones of reality, and then sleep in it, just as though it were true. And then await the inevitable. The inevitable is you're going to resurrect it and objectify it on the screen of space, and then the world will call it real. And they may not believe you. Doesn't really matter. If you tell them it came to pass because you simply imagined it. Now they'll point to the series of events that led up to it, and they will give credit to the bridge of incident across which you walked towards the fulfillment of that state, and they'll point out some physical thing that was the cause. Now the cause is invisible, or the cause is God, and God is invisible to mortal eye.
The reason that this is so powerful is because your conscious mind shuts down before sleep. But if you think about it, there's so much data on the fact that people are sleep deprived and people have trouble sleeping. One of the primary reasons for that is because when people go to sleep, they worry. So they're worrying about the thing that they want that hasn't happened yet. They're worrying about being alone, right? You go into bed and you're like, I'm still alone. or you go into bed and then you start worrying about money. And so what happens is people are using this technique negatively. They are imagining what they don't want that they already have over and over and over again. And this is all marinating in your subconscious before bed and while you go to sleep. And so it's kind of like lucid dreaming. People will try to intentionally lucid dream to fly and do all these things. I lucid dream on the realities that I intend to create for myself. I find that I sleep better, I find that I wake up more excited, and I overall start to feel better about the great things that are coming in my life. It's simple to do, it's easy to do. You just take a couple deep breaths in and out, you put a little smile on your face as you're going to sleep, and every time your mind drifts away, you just bring it right back to those Google images you printed, and you fall asleep seeing and feeling what you want becoming a reality. So my friend, if you love this video, give me a comment down below that says, I love this video. If you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe and bell notification if you're a returner. Make sure you hit that bell notification. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna link my Neville Goddard sleep technique that breaks down the entire sleep process in greater detail that you can watch here now.